Well, hello, Natural Resources class. The topic that we're going to be dealing with today related to agriculture is captured by what you see on the screen. Who really owns American farmland? And I think there is a good deal, again, of misinformation out there, and we're going to try to sort through a bit of that. This should be a shorter lecture, so and we're going to follow it up with a more in-depth look at sort of the economics of farming. You probably have heard that farming is not oftentimes associated with making a lot of money. There have been some years recently where farmers have done very well. Currently, they are doing not very well at all, and we're going to search out and sort out some of the reasons for that. It's also related to the topic we were talking about last time. Why is farmland being consolidated in fewer and fewer farms? You know, why are farms getting so big? And we related that to the soil, but we're going to be a little bit more specific about the economics of that here in an upcoming lecture. Okay, so first the misinformation. So you see here, who really owns American farmland? The answer increasingly is not American farmers, according to this particular source, The Counter. Okay, here's another one. How America's food giants swallowed up the family farms, okay, as if they're all gone. And notice they want you to contribute here. Oftentimes that's one of the preeminent things that you'll see. And this is The Guardian. I think you probably have heard of The Guardian, maybe. Yeah, anyway, here's another one, the Cornucopia Institute. A little bit later, we're going to be looking at a site that evaluates the authenticity and the reliability of some of these sites. It's called Quackwatch. I think you'll enjoy that. Some of these have some of these sites are well done. They have a nice logo, well written, and just don't have a lot of fact to them apart from that. So here, who owns the farmland in the U.S.? Wealthy investors have been purchasing productive land for over the last decade, seeking to protect their assets, so on and so forth. So the bottom line here is the assumption that farmers are no longer the main stakeholders or are increasingly being displaced. Here's a little video clip. This is from something called the Matrix. If you want to look it up, I'll probably make a link to it later when we get to animal agriculture. But this is a little cartoon put out. It's kind of a spoof on the Matrix. This is the Matrix, and you'll see this linked oftentimes at PETA, the Humane Society, Sierra Club, sort of preservationist organizations. And here's what they have to say.
Places like this are where most eggs, milk, and meat come from. How did this happen? I'll show you. In the mid-20th century, greedy agricultural corporations began modifying sustainable family farming to maximize their profits at great cost to both humans and animals.
Well, I hope you heard that better than I did. My computer speaker is really going bad, and like I say, I'll put a link to that in the on Moodle. So anyway, the idea is that American farmland is increasingly not owned by American farmers. They're being bought out, so on and so forth. Well, let's take a little bit of a look at that. There are a number of different things we need to look at. First, if we just look at farm ownership. If you look at your notes, I've got some data from 2007 and from 2014. You got to realize that it is difficult to keep up on all these statistics, and they are not produced every year. So I try to stay on top of them, but this is the best I could do. So in 2007, 87%, this is according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, 87% of farms were family farms, 8% were partnerships, might be two families coming together, 4% were corporations or LLCs, which might be how a family structures itself, 1% was a co-op, an estate, a trust, or whatever. So there you can see that, well, in 2007, no, most farms were still in families. In 2014, the U.S. Department of Agriculture showed that 97% of all U.S. farms were family-owned. Okay, well, but maybe just a few farms have most of the land, And when you look at farms, maybe there's a whole bunch of small, tiny 10-acre farms and just a few bazillion-acre farms, right? So we can't just look at farms to evaluate this. We also have to consider the farmland. Well, again, the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Census Bureau, I think both of them have pretty closely matching numbers on this, show that 4% of U.S. farmland is owned by non-family held corporations. So this notion that our farmland is being gobbled up by these large multinational companies and we're losing control of our food producing source sector, if you will, it is not, it's baloney. It's not backed up by reality. Not to say it couldn't in the future, but it's not currently the situation. I'm just going to take a little brief look at farm household income. That's what's next in your notes. Now, again, we're going to parse out more how, you know, what kind of the bottom line for farms here in upcoming lectures. But there was an interesting article done. It was done in 2003. There was a Compatriot article a few years later looking at farm household income. And in the 2003 article, this is what they showed. If you take your average farm, and if we were in class, I would ask those of you that are in class that grew up on a farm, if both parents work on the farm, if both work off the farm, one works on the farm, one works off the farm, that kind of thing. Increasingly, we're seeing that farm income is coming from off-farm sources. In 2003, only 16% of total family income was actually farm income. You jump ahead to 2010, and that number falls into the red. It seems that, on average, farms lost over $2,000 a year. And you say, well, what's going on? Well, certainly there are some large farms that make a lot of money, but many, many small farms that actually lose money, or show that they lose money on the books at least. And if we delve into that just a little bit more, I think it's kind of interesting. This is another 03 study that was done, and it broke down farm households by type. And you see commercial farm, traditional farm, I'm not sure what their definitions are of there. But then at the bottom, you see there's this rural politan. And that was a big piece, a big portion of the farms that they were looking at. These tend to be small farms near larger metro areas, and people are okay living on those farms and losing money on the farms to live where they live. Many of them usually are going into the city to work another job. They come home, they putz around on the farm. They don't make money at it, but they want the lifestyle. A few years back, real estate, the hottest real estate buy, and it may still be the case, was a small farm near a metro area within driving distance. I assume that's like 30 miles or whatever of a large metro area. That's what people want. They want that rural lifestyle, but they want to be close to a city. And this particular article called those rural politans. I thought that was kind of interesting. And so, so we have some interesting stuff going on in our country. It wasn't that many years ago, 60s, 70s, and 80s, over 50% of total income was farm income on average. And again, if I could poll those in class that live on a farm, I think we would find commonly one or both parents might well have another job off the farm that they use to support to support that family. One last thing, I guess, you know, if we look at farmers, and we need to think about the status of that population, and we find that it's an aging population. Average farm operators, 54.3 years in 1990, up to 58.3 years in 2012. If you look at my mug, my face, that's the face of the age of a lot of the average farmer in the United States today. Okay, maybe a little younger than me, but it's certainly an aging population. And part of that has to do with the economics. We'll talk more about this. If any of you want to get into farming, You think about the millions of dollars that would be required for you to buy land, equipment, livestock, seed, fertilizer, whatever you need. It's daunting to think about that. You have to have your foot in the door. You have to know somebody. Maybe you're going to inherit some land. It's difficult to start out in that particular industry. One last thing is on Moodle, you will see this document, and it looks daunting too. I put this together and I try to keep on track to, oops, let's see here. See if I can make it just fill the screen. Yeah, okay, and this is one, there's a few things to glean from it. So I put together a lot of information here, total acres in the U.S. Of course, that's going to change. Kilauea is constantly erupting, adding a few hundred acres. You know, some's washed away. More's added in the deltas, Mississippi's, whatever. Slight variability. If you look at acres in farms in the U.S., you can see we're just shy of 1 billion acres and have been so for the last, 30 years or so. Another factor is acres planted. And you can see, with the exception 1929 and fall of the stock market shortly, in that year, and then shortly thereafter, when a lot of people, went back to farming for survival, and other reasons, we're generally in the high 13 to low 14% for how many acres as a percentage of the U.S. landmass that we plant every year. Principal crops are listed here. I'm going to go through that list just quickly here. I'm going to put this on Moodle, but I think might be going to add to it too. This is corn. Okay, I think you probably would get that one. This is sorghum or milo. I've mentioned that previously. This is wheat. Okay, this is what a ripe wheat plant would look like. This is barley. Those long strands here that we would call those beards. Barley has very long beards on it. Otherwise, it's very similar to wheat. This is oats, what it looks like up close in a ripe condition. This is rice, what it looks like. Again, fairly ripe looking rice. Of course, this is cotton. Here we have a field of soybeans, ripe soybeans. This is a field of tobacco. Believe it or not, that was a subsidized crop in our country until recently. And this is a field of peanuts. Those are just a few of the crops. So this, I'll try to put this document on Moodle for you to look at. So when we talk about these crops, there's a lot of numbers I've thrown at you here. And if you look at corn, for instance, we have data going back to 1929. The number of acres planted, the yield, how many bushels did an acre of land yield? If you can think of a bushel basket, that's a bushel. That's the standard unit of measurement for most agricultural products. And so an acre of land we've already talked about. A parcel of land roughly 208 feet by 208 feet. About 55 of our classrooms, that kind of thing. So yeah, so 25.7 bushels of corn were obtained, were on average grown on an acre of land in 1929, and for that, well actually in 1949, they got $1.24 per bushel. Okay, and if you go up to 2019, these I haven't got all the numbers in here yet, but the yield went up to 167 bushels per acre, and the price only up to just under $4 per bushel. Soybeans, similar. Wheat, look at wheat. We got data for wheat going back to 1866. In 1866, the average farmer grew 11 bushels of wheat on an acre and got $2.06 for that bushel. Go back to up to 2019, the average farmer grew 51.7 bushels on that acre, but they only got a little over double what they got in 1866, $4.81 a bushel. So the bottom line here is the thing that's kept the American farmer in business is increases in yield, not so much increases in price. There have been years when that's been really good, and I've shown you those high dollar years for the various crops. But generally speaking, it's increases in yield, the ability to get more production out of an acre of ground than the increase in price that's kept farmers in year. They're very susceptible to price, and we'll look at that more in the future. Okay, so that's about where I'm going to stop. This is a shorter lecture. I'm going to put a video clip from another ag blogger. He's about your age. He's 22. His name is Cole the Corn Star. And he does a nice breakdown of the costs and income estimates from his farm in central Iowa near Marshalltown, Iowa. It's mainly a corn and soybean farm, and I think that's going to be a really good vlog for you to look at. It will be the video blog number 3 assignment, where I'm going to ask you again to email me a question or a comment from it. So look for that posting here shortly as well. And thank you and have a good day.